Thank you for tuning in. You're watching The Property Guide and ET Now. I'm Faye D'Souza. We have such a packed show for you today. On this show, we're going to draw up a checklist of legal and financial aspects to keep in mind with property redevelopment. We'll also answer your questions. And later on the show, we'll sit down with Nitesh Estates to find out what their project pipeline looks like for the new year. Now remember, you can send in any question you have about buying property, whether it's finding the right property, getting clearances, or even getting a loan. Send it to us on the property guide at et-now.com. Markets up for discussion on the show this week. Faridabad and Noida extension in the NCR, Neemrana in the new industrial corridor and the outer ring road of Bangalore. Joining us today on the show, Arvind Nandan, the Executive Director, Consultancy Services at Cushman Wakefield, and in our Noida studio, Karthik Verma, co-founder of PropTiger.com. But I'm going to get to the main point of our show right now, and that's redevelopment. As land in our cities becomes a scarce commodity, developers, especially in Mumbai and Delhi, are opting for redevelopment of older buildings as a solution. Now, the developers might be offering incentives that seem attractive, but as homeowners, you should be very, very cautious before striking a deal or signing any papers. Today on the Property Guide, I want to ask our guests to give us a checklist to keep in mind during that entire redevelopment process. Arvind, let's start with you. In Mumbai, in Delhi, and now it's happening in some of the other cities as well, the process of redevelopment might seem daunting for a lot of people who've just been living in their homes for the last 30 or 40 years. There is a lot of grey area about how many people need to agree to the process in order for the building to, go in for redevelopment. Tell us what the legal requirement is right now by law.
So when it comes to redevelopment, a lot of people are thinking of creating some new and up-to-date housing for themselves. The problem begins when people do not know what they're going to get in return and after how much time are they going to get that in return. So the first thing to be noted is to have a very clear-cut assessment of what you will get in return after the redevelopment process. Number two is the process of timing, the point of timing. You need to know after how much time are you going to get something. Number three, and that I think is something which is extremely important, is what happens in the intervening period. Are you sure that you're going to get something which is suitable and almost equitable to what you are surrendering at this point in time during that period? So there are several issues when you look at just the redevelopment process, and each of them requires a very heavy amount of due diligence and a good amount of thought.
Well, Karthik, I want to bring you in here. So this is very interesting. What we've just learned is that the important part is what you're going to get, when you're going to get it, and where you're going to live in the meantime. But there's also the big question of trusting the developer who comes forward and offers to make this deal. How should a homeowner or a society or a group of homeowners make sure that they're making a deal with a good, reliable developer?
Unlike the stock market, past performance counts for a lot in the real estate industry. So if you're dealing with a developer who's had a track record of delivering projects on time and very critically on budget, then you're probably off to a good start. Talk to your friends, relatives, colleagues who might have dealt with a builder of the type that you're dealing with right now. Understand, whether the builder has delivered the product that they've described, at least as far as their vision statement's concerned, and the architectural design and so on, and whether they've delivered that particular product on budget. The fourth thing I'd like to add on top of what Arvind already shared is who takes the brunt of all the cost overruns. We're living in a society where, or rather economy, where costs of steel, cement, and other commodities that go into building infrastructure tends to rise on a very volatile basis every once in a while. Who bears the brunt of that? Is it going to be you, or is that going to be just a cost-plus kind of a contract or something else? So I think that's one of the things that also needs to be looked at with a very, very fine-tooth comb.
For those of our viewers who are watching who perhaps are in a situation where the project is under redevelopment and there has been a delay, what can they do? What's available to them legally?
Again, you need a very good legal counselor and a legal help for you. You can definitely look at certain other commitments that were made at the start of the project, and thereby go and see if you can either do a negotiation on those aspects, or if it is imminent, then go and seek the help of the courts of law.
All right, Karthik, before we wrap up this discussion, could you give us a checklist on the documents that, one must make sure that you have in hand or that the society has in hand when you're entering a deal like this?
Well, every city will have its own regulations and documents required on what needs to happen before a redevelopment can take place. But to start with, you need permission from the municipal authorities that you can indeed engage in some kind of redevelopment. In a city like Bombay, which has a lot of coastal area, there'll be certain coastal regulations that come in as a part of, being a part of the CRZ area. I think secondly, if you're living as a part of a society, then make sure that, under the rules of the society, the right kind of documentation has happened and the right procedures have been followed, where the minimum threshold required to agree for a redevelopment have actually approved on the redevelopment plans. The last thing you want is some kind of infighting among all the different members of the society. But if you look at all the different documents within these three headings, you'll pretty much have a comprehensive list. And like Arvind said, get legal help, because every city will have its own regulatory agencies, because these are all state subjects. And a lawyer who's versed with the local rules and regulations and what the local buttons that need to be pressed are would be of immense value when it comes to understanding that you have all the documents in place so that there's no delays going forward.
All right, so it's important to have a good lawyer on board, and to help you, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in our lawyer who's on our panel right now, who will tell you what you should do in case you're in a redevelopment project that's being delayed.
Now, in case of a redevelopment, the society as a body can approach the district court or the high court, and under the specific relief act, the development agreement which contains a penalty clause, that clause needs to be evoked, and the developer is put to a penalty by making and depositing X amount as per the delay in that court, and also subsequent delays, the amounts to be deposited in the court. By this, the builder or the developer, whosoever is constructing a redevelopment project, will be put to task, and he would see to it that as soon as possible he is able to complete the project, so that he is not put to any further financial losses.
All right, so if you have any questions about redevelopment, we'd be glad to take it up again on the show and answer any of your questions. Send them to us. Email IDs are at the bottom of your screen. Let's move on to some questions. Now, Neemrana has written in, he wants to buy a plot of land or an apartment in Neemrana in Rajasthan with a budget of 20 to 30 lakh rupees. Please give me some options. Now, for someone looking at Neemrana, we know it's on that industrial corridor. Does it make more sense to buy a plot or an apartment?
I would say in this particular kind of an urban setup, where the development is still not that thick and dense, it may be wise to go for a piece of plot. Apartment is always...
What sort of a return do you think he may expect from a plot of land? Well,
from the capital appreciation point of view, I think there is a very significant upside in 5 to 6 years' time, and it could be even in the range of 50 to 60%, if everything goes well.
All right, let's take another question. Muhammad has written in, he wants to buy an apartment in Bhubaneswar in Odisha. He wants to know what locations he should focus on, and if there's any advice you'd like to give him.
Well, Bhubaneswar is one city which I like a lot. It is one of those cities that is trying very aggressively to rejuvenate itself, much like Kochi is doing and certain other tier 3, tier 4 cities are doing in India. The prices at this point in time, are in a very open range, very broad range. So if you have a budget which is from, say, 25, 26 lakhs going up to 55 lakhs or so, you can make a very good investment. I would say Bilan Developers, Metro Builders, there is Raj Anand Builders, Green India Infra Projects. So these are some 4 or 5 infra.
Can you give him a location in Bhubaneswar that you think makes sense?
Well, there are quite a few actually. So if you go towards the eastern or the northeastern part of the city, things which are, moving towards Cuttack, those are the belts where you might just want to be, taking a little bit of chance on.
All right, let's take a very quick break. But when we come back, we'll review the Faridabad micro market. We'll also talk a little bit about Bangalore. Karthik and Arvind are going to stay with us. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching the Property Guide on ET Now. Thank you so much for staying with us. Both of our guests are still with us. Karthik and Arvind are standing by, helping us make smarter decisions when it comes to buying property. Now, remember last week we talked about Ghaziabad as a possible destination for affordable housing in the NCR belt. This week we're going to focus on Faridabad. Take a look. 2 decades ago, Faridabad was just an industrial hub, famous for hosting an annual crafts fair. But all that changed when improved infrastructure and faster connectivity brought it closer to the rest of the NCR. Well, the 6-lane elevated Badrapur flyover and the Delhi Metro's upcoming 14-kilometer link has cut down travelling time between Faridabad and Delhi. According to Magic Bricks, some of the key investment locations in Faridabad are Sarja Kund, Neharpur, Palwal and Green Valley. Sarja Kund has witnessed a 43% rise in residential prices over the last 2 years, and homes are currently priced at an average of 6,950 rupees a square foot. Neharpur, on the other hand, has seen an increase of 49% in 2 years and is currently being priced at 3,625. Palwal, on the other hand, prices of homes in Palwal are currently priced at 2,025 rupees a square foot on an average. That's an increase of 40% over 2 years. And finally, Green Valley, an upscale integrated township, has seen a price rise of 27% and is currently being priced at an average of 5,825. All right, so that was Faridabad. Arvind, I'm going to bring you in here. It's not as cheap as Ghaziabad. There isn't as much of a difference between a Faridabad and a Noida or some portions of Gurgaon. Why is Faridabad in focus right now, and what sort of prospects do you think it has in the future?
You know, if you speak of Faridabad, you got to look at about last 20-25 years, the way Faridabad has changed and evolved over a period of time. So from very much a semi-urban kind of a setup, it has evolved into a very highly urbanized setup now. If you look at Faridabad, it's now connected by 2 or 3 roads with Delhi. And when access increases, when people live there in order to work somewhere else, prices will naturally go up. So Faridabad has certainly changed its character. It's metamorphosed from an industrial kind of an organism into a very high-class residential and commercial destination.
Karthik, if we look at the price rise, it's up to almost 50% over the last 2 years in Faridabad alone. You're in Delhi, you track that market very closely. For someone who's looking to own a home in the NCR region, does Faridabad make sense?
Well, while I agree with Arvind's view that, Faridabad has transformed itself over the last 2+ decades, it hasn't really delivered upon its promise over the last 5 or 6 years. There have been a lot of project delays. Some infrastructure development that had been promised hasn't really materialized the way one expected it to. And it's turned out to be somewhat of an unglamorous cousin to what Gurgaon is, which is where there's a lot more white-collar IT and services kind of industry jobs being created. The density of office space is much higher over there. So prices have gone up, but they're probably higher than what they ought to be relative to certain pockets and micro markets within Gurgaon or areas south of Gurgaon that Arvind was just referring to a moment ago. And we'd prefer those areas rather than just plonking down money at about 7,000 or 8,000 rupees per square foot in Faridabad, which frankly seems very expensive given the lack of infrastructure and white-collar job creation in that particular market.
All right, so Karthik doesn't think it's the best market to focus on. What's your advice? And Karthik was giving us advice for end users, for people who are going to live in the homes they buy. But let's talk to investors now. Do you also think it doesn't make sense if I'm an investor in the NCR?
I think it's definitely not a market which is comparable to certain other more happening or more vibrant markets of the NCR. However, it still is a market which has got a potential to deliver in the future. So from the point of view of an investor, I would say if you have a long-term horizon and if you are willing to wait next 4, 5, 6 years maybe, then you can take a call on the Neharpur area. The challenge would be that the pricing has become almost stable there. It's not going up anymore. So if you are still wanting to take a gamble, you can very well go there and do it.
All right, so this is interesting. Our guests agreeing and also disagreeing a little bit on the whole contest of Faridabad. But what we have arrived at is that if you live and work in the neighborhood and this is where you want to be, then it might make sense for you. Of course, that's something you have to think about very carefully. But in the meantime, we've put together a list of projects that are under construction in Faridabad right now that you can take a look at. If you're looking to invest in a home in Faridabad, here are some options. BBTP's Park Floor, Platinum Heights from KLJ Developers, Ansal's Crown Heights, Puri Constructions, Pranayam, SRS Royal Hills 2, The Forest Spa by Omax, Alta Casa by Ostrom Homes, Ibiza Town by Krish, Sky Bungalows by Rise Projects, Maximum Heights Infrastructure Aravali 1 and Simeon by Meenal Housing. Alright, time for us to take a few more questions. Sachin has written in, he wants to invest in a 2 or a 3 bedroom apartment near the outer ring road in Bangalore with a budget of 40 to 50 lakh rupees. Please give him options of neighbourhoods. Karthik, 40 to 50 lakh rupees in Bangalore, that's still doable, isn't it?
I think it's a little tight, Faye, on the outer ring road. There are a few developments that are out there. There's one called Goyal Orchid Lakeview, as I read from my notes. That's retailing at about 55 lakhs right now. There's another one by Amigo Shelters, Sri Sai. That's at about 50 lakhs, but not a lot of these are going to get delivered within the next 12 months. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of that many branded developers who are developing properties over here that we would think of right now. But some of these local builders have good reputations as well, and he might want to consider these.
All right. But that's interesting. If your budget's a little low, looking at something that's under construction might make sense. Do you have anything to add for Sachin?
Yeah, it does. And I quite agree with what Karthik was saying. You know, the budget could be a bit of constraint here. I would make an assumption. A lot of people, when they speak of outer ring road...
it circles the entire city, doesn't it?
Yeah, outer ring road is a very huge stretch, 30 to 32 kilometers. I think the viewer is practically speaking about a stretch between Marthahalli to Sarjapur Road. That's where most people, want to be because it's closer to the electronic city, IT corridor and all. He was right in saying that the budget could be a constant, and there are not too many highly branded developers who are there, but still there are other reliable ones. In fact, I had a few names that I could suggest. There is something called Cosmos by Saroj, which is probably just fitting in the budget, but it's going to be delivered only next year. There is something called Srivatsa Constructions Mayfair Anthem. May again fit in. Evergreens is something which is about 46, 47 lakhs and is now ready to move in. So there are 3 or 4 projects which you definitely can look at apart from Sagar Nivas and Wars Parkwood. But these are again probably going to be just on the outer limit of the budget.
One more question. Bhaskar has written in. He wants to invest in a 2-bedroom apartment in Noida Extension with a budget of 25 lakh rupees. Karthik, I'm making this more and more difficult for you. 25 lakh rupees Noida Extension, is that possible?
Well, that's again a little tight, unfortunately, Faye. I think 25 lakhs is going to be a little difficult, but if the viewer is able to stretch himself to about 30 lakhs, then Eco Village 3 is available, as well as O2 Amrapali is also available within that price range in Noida Extension. But like you said in the preface of the question, I think you have made it harder for me, but if the gentleman can stretch his budget a little bit, hopefully he'll be able to make it easy for himself.
Arvind, do you have anything to offer?
I pretty much agree, and it's 25 lakhs is a little tough for Noida Extension. You can probably look at a few projects like Elegant Splendor, Amrapali, O2, like you said, but they're all 25 plus. You got to be closer to 30 lakhs. If you're very strict within 25, then probably you can analyze Gaur Smart Home, Gaur City 2, and Ajnara Le Garden, but they're probably just at the outer limit of your budget.
All right, I want to thank both of our guests for spending time with us this week. Karthik and Arvind, it's been a pleasure to have you in the studio. When we come back from this break, we'll sit down with Nitesh Estates and we'll find out what the company has in the pipeline for next year. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching the Property Guide in ET Now. Thank you for staying with us. It's our Meet the Developer segment. And today we have Ashwini Kumar, Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer of Nitesh Estates, who joins us from Bangalore. Ashwini, thank you so much for spending time with us this week. We've heard so much really about the fact that there's a slowdown, that stock is piling up right now. Now, you operate exclusively from Bangalore. Tell us what sales have been like for you over the last 1 year.
Well, what I'm seeing is that the sales are holding. While we would have loved the absorption rates to have grown, but we are finding that not only ourselves, but the market as a whole, the absorption is just holding. So, estimates vary, but roughly about, 15 to 20,000 units a quarter. That is what is sold in Bangalore.
I believe you have about 13 projects under construction in various stages. In specific, there's the Napa Valley and the Long Island project. Give us some details of these projects.
The Long Island project is a plotted development. It is located in Devanhalli. I think the important part here is the ticket size. You know, if you have about 50 lakhs to 60 lakhs, you can own a plot of your own, and it makes a very good investment proposition. The second project that you talked about is Nitesh Napa Valley, and this is again located midway between the airport and the city, and we are developing it like a resort. So we thought that, well, we need to assemble a great team. So we've got actually WATG to do the master plan and the architecture. We've got P Landscape, again, a very big name in terms of landscape architecture. So we've got these two teams along with Warner Wong, which is doing the interior design.
Well, Napa Valley has been an interesting project, Ashwini. Tell us what the ticket size is on this project and what sort of response you've received on the ground.
It gets to around 3.5 crores is the price that one would have to pay for the smallest villa, and it goes to around 5.5 crores. So this is in terms of the ticket size. We have still another about 50 units to be sold in the project.
The other interesting development with you is that Nitesh Estates has now started affordable housing as well. What are the new launches you have within your affordable housing segment, and what ticket sizes are you looking at?
Out of the 13 projects that we have right now, we have only, I would say, 4 projects which are in the ticket size of 3 crores or above. The other projects are really mid-income homes, where you can still buy it at around 5,000 rupees a square feet.
So what is the lowest ticket size then you're offering in Bangalore right now?
The latest one that we have launched is British Columbia, Nitesh British Columbia, which is off the Kanakpura road. And there one would still be able to buy it for a ticket size of about 45 lakhs. One would still be able to get the small size home, a 2 BHK unit. One would be able to still get it for that price.
All right, Ashwini, many thanks for joining us on Property Guide. That was Nitesh Estates sharing with us their pipeline for the future. That's a wrap on this show. Our email ID is at the bottom of your screen. You can reach me personally on Twitter if you'd like to. Thanks for watching.